Thank you, gentlemen. With that win, Edward Gaming have clinched a spot in tomorrow's semifinals where they'll join SKT and AHQ, as well as one more team to be decided later today. So there's still an opportunity for any of these teams at the bottom here to get up into that fourth slot. We'll figure that out a bit later. But breaking down this victory here for EDG, very methodical, and as they mentioned, you know, with Def's interview, they're starting to execute on everything they said they would coming into this tournament.
Yeah, it wasn't a trap game at all. They came at it full force. They didn't pull any punches, and the fact that they brought out Jinx showed that they weren't even going to use this game to try something new. They're like, no, we want to crush them as fast as possible. We want this game to be over with and move on to the next one. So that was a big display of power from EDG.
Yeah, honestly, I think this is something which you should hold account for EDG, that they didn't slack off. They really wanted to win the game from the start, and I think, yeah, good coaching. Nobody actually fell behind, did anything random. Pawn here and there got maybe a little bit caught out, but overall the team just went full steam from the beginning.
Good coach.
I actually couldn't believe the Jinx pick coming through as well. That's a pick that we expected to see when we saw the Tristana, and you saw exactly how strong it is, because Thresh Jinx is so good in a 2v2, but also a 2v1 lane. You saw the flay onto the chompers. That is so much CC that can come through, and they're pretty good at the lane.
By the way, I have to say, I love the triple blasting wand there by Energy in the mid lane. Just all the AP, that's thrift shopping right there, taking a lesson from EDG in thrift shopping. But again, this just points to what we were talking about earlier with their attitude about the game. These guys are going at it. They're not admitting defeat. They're going to take all of the fights they can. We saw them trying things, looking for, you know, brushes to camp, even in those giant deficits.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, because we saw in the international wildcard, they were happy to take Rumble into Nah, and they were pretty much punished for that matchup in the end of this game. So I think that their top laner, especially Thordrum, would have learnt a lot going up against Koro in that lane. I think they've taken a heck of a lot away from this tournament in general, and it's not every day you get to play against those players.
I think that's their mentality too, coming into this. So shout out to Beşiktaş and the way that they play the game, because even in international wildcard, they would have huge deficits, 6-7K gold, and they'd keep playing to win the game. They never got in the defeatist mindset where they're like, this game's already over, let's just play for the next one. They're always getting as much as they can out of the games.
Yeah, I think also just to touch on my point before, the only time I actually saw EDG a little bit overextended was the 4v1. You can't 4v1 Dumbledore? He invented the 4v1.
I love it. All right, well, I do want to look at, you know, EDG a little bit more, as they did drop that game to SKT, but they are looking a little bit more in form here, maybe dealing with some of that jet lag. And as they move to, well, we'll talk about this in just a moment. I'm going to interrupt myself because we have our interview ready. We're going to toss it over to Shox for a word with our winners.
Thank you so much, Dash. I'm joined here by Koro after that victory that locks EDG in the playoffs as well. First off, congratulations. Now, Koro, you've had a good tournament so far. A lot of eyes were on the mid lanes, but it seems that it's the top lanes that have really taken charge. What do you think has been the most important for a team strength?
很恭喜你们今天的比赛。进来 MSI 很多人都觉得是中路很重要，不过现在看很多上路其实上表现其实上很好。你觉得是哪个更重要？
我觉得中上都很重要，但是中路是节奏点，因为你中路有优势，你能推线，可以帮助上下取得优势，也可以帮助打野取得优势，所以我觉得中路在前面的。就是节奏能力上更强。
I think both mid and top lane are very important, but personally I think mid lane plays an important role in controlling the pace of the game, because if you're winning, you're able to help snowball top and bottom lane. So I think in the early game at least, mid lane is very important.
All right, in the early game, mid game, most important, then the rest of the game, top taking over as well. As said, you've had a good tournament so far. Yesterday, though, versus SKT, you couldn't really prove your worth because of the way that game went versus Marin. You guys are locked in the playoffs. If you meet him again, what do you want to prove in that matchup?
你们昨天和 SKT 的比赛，你打的也不是特别出色。如果你们在 playoffs 能和SKT 再见面，你和 Marin 在比赛，你想证明什么？
如果我们再遇到 SKT， 我会证明我比 Marin 强。
If we meet SKT in the playoffs, I will show that I am better than Marin.
All right. Well, maybe we get to see that. And the final question, you've locked in your spot now in the playoffs, as is SKT and AHQ. Are you surprised at all at the way this tournament has went and teams of the regions that have shown up and done well?
你们已经进入 playoffs 的和 SKT 还有 AHQ，就是你看这个比赛 AHQ 能进入，北美的还有欧洲的不能进入，可能不会进入，你有什么看法？
我觉得只是说 AHQ 现在的状态比较好，并不能说就是说欧美那边的队伍没有我们就是中国队伍强。就是说最近 AHQ 的选手状态比欧洲那边队伍的状态好。
I think it's the recent performance of AHQ has been really strong. Their players are performing really well. Not necessarily that the European American teams are weaker than the Chinese or the LMS teams. It's just that currently it so happens AHQ players are performing really well.
Well, that's a nice way to look at it. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Good luck in the playoffs. As for us, back over to you, Dash.
Thank you, Shox. Dash, you got rudely interrupted before. Please continue.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I do actually want to talk about EDG and SKT because they might come up against each other here in the semifinals or the finals of the tournament. And we heard it there, some big words about who will come out on top next time. Do we believe that EDG, the way they've performed today, are back in form and can give SKT a run for their money?
Yeah, like any good one-sided analyst, I have completely thrown out the performance against SKT yesterday. No, in all seriousness, I think they do have a shot, but I think SKT are looking very dominant.
Yeah, they definitely have a shot, but the fact that Koro's talking about being better than Marin, I think that's going to be a fantastic matchup to watch because that's going to be a head-to-head clash, and Marin has been having a fantastic tournament so far.
Of course, that's a match that may come. We have more matches at hand here. I want to look forward to our next match, SKT versus Fnatic here, because Fnatic needs to win this game. They're in that group of teams down there that are vying for that final spot. What are they going to do to get a victory here?
Yeah, I hope that Fnatic is pulling out a really aggressive play style, maybe going for tower dives in the early game, maybe lane swap and go for this 4v1, 3v1 dive. And I think that SKT might, with the over-aggressiveness in the early game, gets a little bit shaken up. But I expect SKT to actually be really, really strong and just show their dominance.
Yeah, I expect this to be a game where is it EasyHoon or Faker playing? Because
it's Faker.
It is Faker. So
Faker.
I actually thought this would be a EasyHoon game because this is one of those games where you can put the brick wall up in the mid lane, and I think just focus on top lane and try and shut Hooney down.
I feel like SKT is being really nice to EU and NA. They're like, you guys get to play against Faker. Don't know if you'll get to do it later on in the tournament, but here you go. You get this opportunity to play against the God of Death.
Well. I think that Fnatic at least can make a run for the money.
Well, we'll find out soon enough. We do have to take 5 or 3.5 to be more precise, but don't touch that dial because when we come back, it's a clash between former world champions as SKT Telecom T1 takes on Fnatic.
We will directly go to playoffs.
Yeah. Really? Yes. 100%?
Yes. 100%,
This is happening. Narde, believe.
Def gets excited as he takes down the Jana. Destiny coming in. Nardius has to be careful. That play at max range was beautiful. Yeah, Dumbledore's going to fall down. Double kill for Def. His energy's going to get exhausted. Koro, he's burning down. Is he going to die?
Flash is out. There's the summoner spell used to get him into position. Here comes the Destiny.
Oh, the
and
Gnar.
the blowback as well from that Gnar.
Able to get the exhaust off, but Def being the hero flashes over the Arctic. Triple kill. Theocles comes back alive. EDG, they get the rest of the job done.